John and I go back a long way. I haven't got any notes, so I'm prepared to stand here and be emotional and mumble if necessary, because to see all you people here today is deeply, deeply moving. Julian Assange is locked up for 23 hours a day, and when John was talking about it just now, I was thinking that what I need to help to persuade people is that we as individuals need to be able to put ourselves in the position of somebody who is in solitary confinement. I've been to one or two events like this, except they weren't a lot of people like this is. It was Andy Worthington and his dog listening to me when I was demonstrating for the release of Shaka Alma from Guantanamo a few years ago. Thank goodness he was eventually released and is now back with his family. Where was I? How do we put ourselves in the position of a Julian Assange in solitary confinement, or with that kid in Syria or Palestine or Rohingya being blown to bits by these people in this building here? How do we put ourselves in the position of the parents of that child who will spend the rest of his life on crutches or however? It's called empathy, and it is the most valuable thing that any human being can possess in their lives. And the reason that it's so valuable to all of you here, me, John, everybody involved in any of these movements, is because it brings us joy. It is what brings joy to our lives, to be able to empathize not just with Julian Assange or the dead kid in Palestine, but with all our brothers and sisters all over the world, when we acknowledge that we are brothers and sisters and that we all have a responsibility one to another. All right. So, one of the reasons that it's so moving to see you all here is because it means that nobody standing in Marsham Street today, with the possible exception of Special Branch, I know you're there, none of you are asleep. You are awake. You understand your predicament and the predicament of the other 65 million people who live in Great Britain. Well, no, it was never great. It was a lot better than it is now. When I was last here, my old lady was out and shopping, and she bought a toy for our dog to destroy. It's called a pet hate. I know this because there's a lady in somewhere in this great metropolis who makes, it's a little toy, and this one was Boris Johnson. We have him now. I mean, what's left of him. I'm happy to say the Chihuahua has almost entirely destroyed Bojo, as we call him. And we're happy to see that. So when I was making one of my little videos in support of the Bolivarian revolution in Venezuela, there's a chap there with a bad throat. Somebody give him a Strepsil. Anyway, I made a reference to Donald Trump. Well, the Bojo pet hate looks a bit like Trump. It's got that weird, funny hair and everything that they share. And the lady said, "I'm just making a Trump. Would you like one?" And I said, "Yes, please." She sent it as an email to me. So we now have two. And She's one woman working on her own, and these are her only two pet hates so far. Let's turn it into one of the greatest corporations in the world. Pet hates. The first two are Bojo and Trump. Anyway, I digress. What else do I have to say? Yeah, John Pilger and I go back to 1985 when I worked with him and with a lovely man called David Munro, who was a filmmaker, and they had made a documentary film in 1985 or before called The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, or just The Four Horsemen. And it was based on the idea, and I to this day remember a line from the film because I used it in a show I did called Radio Chaos, and the show was, we are fueling wars. And we are. And this is what Julian understood. I.e., because we want to make money, I know you all know this. I'm really talking to some of the people asleep at home. Oi, wake up! You all know this, but we make weapons in order to make money. Not for us, but for them. And in order to sell the weapons, we need to encourage people to kill one another and to be fighting. Well, as we all know now, in the desperate predicament that this tiny, fragile planet is in, we are going to have to learn to act collectively. I know this is boring, but it's fucking true. So we're going to have to learn to act collectively, to express our love for one another, and in consequence, hopefully, the planet will survive for another 100 or 200 or 300 or 1,000 or 10,000 years, and our children and grandchildren can experience some measure of the joy that is to be found in the love of one another. And that's all I have to say. Good man. Thank you. We're going to sing a song in a minute. But before we do, since we're here and it's not pissing with rain, and where are we going to go next? I don't know. I've got very little to do. I'm going to tell you a story because I love it. All right, here it goes. No more preamble. I had a friend who was a junior minister in the Thatcher government, and one of his jobs was to go and meet dignitaries at Heathrow Airport. And one day, this is his story, by the way. You'd know him if I mentioned his name, but I won't because... Anyway, President Gorbachev was going to pass through London refueling his plane. So this young chap had to go with a bunch of other young guys from the Foreign Office and the Civil Service to bow and scrape in their morning suits. Anyway, Gorbachev lands and all these Russian troops and blah, blah, blah. And he's only there for 20 minutes and they're in a little room. He's there with an aide, and these chaps are all standing around in their shiny brogues and their pinstripes and their morning coats and whatever. I say, jolly good, this should be jolly interesting. And Gorbachev just stands there and looks at him like he did. And eventually he leans over to his aide and he goes, and the aide says, President Gorbachev would like to ask you a question. And all the young blokes go, I say, bloody good, jolly good, this should be interesting. So he goes, so the aide says, President Gorbachev would like to know your opinion on following question. What do you think would have been different in world history if President Khrushchev was assassinated rather than President Kennedy? And they all go, fuck me. This is too difficult. So now they're staring at their brogues and shuffling backwards towards the wall. So Gorbachev, to his eternal credit, let them stew in it for several minutes. And then he turns to him, and he never cracked a smile like that. And he says to his aide, well, it's and the aide says, President Gorbachev believes it unlikely that Mrs. Kennedy would have, that Mr. Onassis would have married Mrs. Khrushchev. I fucked it up, but I kind of like that story. And so I may be going to see the great man at the beginning of November because he's getting very old now, and we owe him, President Gorbachev, late of the USSR, an enormous debt of gratitude for understanding some of the things that we're sharing here together in this meeting outside our dilapidated, miscreant Home Office. All right, I will shut up now and we'll sing the song. I'd like you to welcome to the stage a very old friend of mine, Andy Fairweather-Low. That needs to be over there. Well, a bit further over. Hold it. That's all right. It's fine. That's lovely. Yeah, there, just leave it like that. It'll be fine. It's only rock and roll. You know what this is? What this is here today, just thinking about this song, what I wrote, Ernie Wise, it doesn't matter. It's a walk-on part in the war. Look, people often ask me about this song, oh, what does it mean, what does it mean? Well, that little bit of the song, would you exchange a walk-on part in the war for a lead role in a cage? Well, no, I wouldn't. This is my walk-on part in this war, and I would much prefer to be here with all of you who are also making a walk-on part in the war rather than accepting a lead role in a cage. What?
Guitar, I need some guitar because I have no... And you need guitar.
Yeah, we need to hear Andy's guitar.
Well, might be just better to strum.
The first time I played an acoustic guitar in public in front of an audience that hadn't bought tickets was at my kids', one of my kids' schools. He was 8 years old then, he's 43 now, but I was so fucking frightened going to play to these 8-year-olds. I promise. This is a measure of how our insecurities can well up and make life difficult. That I had to take Andy Fairweather-Low with me to play the guitar and as moral and musical support. So I'm very glad that I haven't moved away from those basic needs. And it's great to have you here, Andy. And thank you. You're a lovely man and a great friend. All right, here we go. Can you hear him now? Can you hear his... All right. Patel. Heaven from hell, blue skies from pain. Can you tell a green field from a cold steel red? A smile from a veil. Do you think you can tell? And did they get you the train? Your heroes for ghosts, hot ashes for trees, and hot air, cool breeze, cold comfort for change. And did you exchange a walk-on part of the war for a lead role in the cage? Running over the same old ground. What have we found? The same old fear. And I wish that you were here. Thank you so much. Julian Assange, we are with you. Free Julian Assange! That's it. I'm done. Thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, John Pilger. This is really very, very, very moving moment for me, so thank you.
Well, they say get the fact, and then they will, if they know the fact.
And the reason they say is because they say he helped Trump get into the White House. And we know it's not true. But how can we
Their
answer those
problem,
people?
not yours and not Julian's.
Yeah.
There are some people who are so resistant to
Yeah.
truth and facts, there's nothing much you can do to them except hold their hand.
Yeah, yeah. All right, thanks.
Yeah. So there's like, we wanted to say The fact that we have made such a lot of progress. When you think of where we were 5 or 6 years ago to where we are now, I mean, I know there's still a long way to go, but
People are waking up now.
I really do honestly think so. But we have to get control of it.
Absolutely. Bring on the general election.
Democracy inside of the party. So that we can make sure that because unless we have a democracy, I don't think it's going to be as easy to have a general election.